Hey, it's Al Angelo from A Plus Racing. We're bringing you a video on Q&A Monday. But I got a little thing I got to say before that is that I am filming not from my house and not from the school. If you can pan off to the side there, you are looking at New York City. And it's raining like hell and it's the end of June. This is where A Plus Racing YouTube videos started about a year and a half ago. So my daughter, Amber, who's filming right now, and they talked me into posting these videos about Spec Miata racing on YouTube, and that's the reason why we have this channel. So it's their fault, all right, that this channel exists. But hey, let's get on to it. I want to go on to the Q&A Monday, but first I have to give a shout out to Byron, Byron, who used part of my video in his video. Yes, you have my permission, brother. You live up in Washington. I know you're doing autocross in Packwood, Washington. I've been there hundreds of times, buddy. I used to elk hunt there. My father-in-law used to live there. And so I've been there. Maybe one day I get to see you out there. But hey, Byron, if you ever have any problems with that Miata of yours, and I know you ran into a lot of problems in that video, man, don't hesitate to give me an email, shoot me your phone number. I'll call you. We'll fix that thing over the phone, no problem. But I saw some things that you did that was making it harder on yourself. I could definitely help you out. Any of you, if you want to shoot me an email with your phone number, I can call you and I can give you a hand. I help people over the phone all the time fix their Miatas. But we're going to move on with Q&A Monday because we have a whole bunch of them. So let's go ahead and start. And my daughter Amber is going to go ahead and read me what your comment is, and then I'll answer to it.
All right, Dad. Zachwood6603 says your video was awesome. He doesn't know why, but I struggled so much with getting the timing belt back on. It had little to no slack with trying to get it over the second gear. I was fixing my lifter tick with replacing the lifters with new ones because I couldn't get the originals apart. First attempt, it didn't start, but I did get it the second time.
Good. Well, I see two different problems here. One, yeah, you got to make sure you got that tensioner back all the way. So that video that I made on timing myths and tricks, that definitely helps out thousands of people every week on getting that time belt on right. And on those lifters, yeah, you know, especially 1.6 lifters, they're just a ticky lifter. Do I replace them? No, I don't. You know, we change the oil. We know that they tick. The race cars don't seem to really care if they're ticking or not. So we just listen to them, and normally they're not too overly loud. And so a lot of times the ticking goes away after they've warmed up a little bit. But, you know, I know you can take them apart, you can clean them, and people have success with that. A lot of times, you know, I'll clean them up, and then I just put them in on the build. But I'm glad you got that thing back together, and I'm glad that the videos helped you. That's what they're for. And I hope that you subscribed and that you're enjoying the channel. Okay, so who's the next one?
All right, the Joke Bug 55, he watched the Miata rear brake job. He said he followed the procedure exactly using ceramic pads, and I hear a metallic rubbing sound when driving slowly. Is that normal? Is there a break-in period?
Okay, so depending on how aggressive the pads are, like I personally use Hawk Blue brake pads on all the race cars. They're pretty aggressive. And if you're not on the brakes, you can kind of hear them going as you're driving down the road. When I read this the first time, because I get an email on these, I thought my mind immediately went heat shield, all right? Did you happen to accidentally bend the heat shield, or is the heat shield rubbing against the rotor? That can definitely cause a scraping sound. If you followed my video exactly, it's not going to be the pads, but I'm suspecting like possibly the heat shield itself on the back there is rubbing up against the rotor. You can just take the heat shield and push it back. Buddy, we just take the heat shield off, and I got the video on that. We just pitch those things out of there so we don't have to deal with that problem. But I would definitely take a look at that. I'm glad that the video helped you. All right.
All right, next one. Throwback 19841. He watched your inner and outer tie rod end replacement video, and he says, "Thank you. I'm swapping in a depowered rack tomorrow and needed to see how to replace the tie rods. I think I'll remove the translant and the whole inner and outer assemblies as one, so I get to retain the existing alignment." What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Two things come to mind though when I hear your comment here. One is that you're switching to a non-power steering rack. So you're going to have to know that that inner tie rod end is completely different than a power steering rack. So you're going to be dealing with the thread pitch is different on the inner tie rod end. So you're going to have to make sure that you get an inner tie rod end for a non-power steering rack. Now, if this was a power steering rack that's been converted to a non-power steering rack, then you're going to still use the power steering inner tie rod end. All right. As far as trying to get away with not aligning it, I'm sorry, buddy, you can't do it. You're going to have to align it anyways. The parts are a little different. Even if you're counting the turns perfectly and everything, you're not. I mean, you'll be close enough to get it to alignment shop, or better yet, use my video that talks about how to set the toe with a tape measure. All right. So you can definitely just set the alignment at home with a tape measure and a nail or a Phillips or something like that. And you could set your own alignment and you won't have to spend $120 down at the alignment shop. Okay. So just kind of watch out for those two things. I hope this helps you. And thanks for the comment.
All right. Rowan Healy, he watched your extended lower ball joint made easy. And he says, it's a good video. I hope mine comes off as easily. My car seems a bit different, but the video did help a lot. The hammer method worked perfectly to release the joint.
You know, after working in the automotive industry for, I don't know, 40 years, we always used the hammer method, but the book always said, yeah, grab the pickle fork, the special tool. The special tool at the dealership is always gone. It was gone the first week it showed up. But the hammer method seems to work pretty good. I mean, I've used that for 40 plus years. And so long as you know where to hit it right with the hammer, they usually pop right off. So I'm glad the video helped you all out. And don't forget to get that car aligned too, or you can align it yourself. Watch my video on how to align it. But anytime you replace anything in the steering, and a lot of times most of the suspension components, you're supposed to do an alignment. So you want to get that aligned. Especially if you go to drive it and the steering wheel's crooked, that tells you it's out of alignment. All right. I'm glad it helped, Betty. Okay.
KevOS0 watched your cam timing tricks video and just said it was very well explained and you're a great teacher.
So, I appreciate that, buddy. You know, I made that video on purpose for people on Facebook that have problems setting their timing, because I see so much bad advice on there. But also too, because I teach high school and we build Miata engines in every class. And so it's an easy video for them to follow along. So I got to make it easy. 16-year-old kids can set these timings up, build these engines and put them in race cars. You definitely can do it. So these are beginning students. These are not advanced students. My beginning class builds Miata engines within the first 2 months of being in school, and they're all successful. So any mistake that could ever possibly be made on a Miata engine has been made in my class, and I've seen it. So, but I'm glad that video helped you out, and look forward to hearing more from you.
All right. Jonathan watched your electrical PT3 diagrams made easy video. He has a question on the differential rebuild series. We followed your steps and swapped a 4.30 onto a Torsen Type 1 because they race SCCA on the East Coast. After we bolt the carrier back onto the pumpkin, should I be able to rotate the diff by hand from where the drive shaft connects? We're getting resistance and it only freely turns when the carrier is off.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. You put the pumpkin back into the housing, and now it's either hard to turn or doesn't turn where the drive shaft flange is bolted up. I've seen this multiple times, and here's what I see has happened. When you drop the pumpkin into the housing, you must put the two bolts in that are opposite of each other that have a collar on them. You'll notice all the bolts, except for two of them, they're threaded all the way to the end. Okay, from the bottom of the bolt to the top of the bolt, it's threaded. Two of them are not. Those two are alignment pins. That aligns up the pumpkin so it's perfectly centered. So when the axles come in, they can slide right into the side gears. If you put the other bolts on first, you will not center that pumpkin against the housing. And that's where I see this problem. You definitely got to pull it back out. Okay, you got to separate those, clean all the silicone up, make sure you put those two bolts opposite. One of them's really long, one of them's really short. You'll see they've got they're not threaded all the way. They got a guide collar on them, and that helps align everything up. But I think if you do that, torque it to the specifications, you're going to find that thing should spin just as easy in the housing as it did out of the housing. And I hope I caught you on time on this, where you're not going to have a major failure. All right. But thank you for that comment. I'm glad you brought that up.
All right. MJ Nitro 73 says, I see how it is filming videos without me.
You know, I just don't like having a stalker. You know, I think we're talking about my buddy Camera Mike. Camera Mike, you know I love you, man. I had to replace you with my daughter. I had to travel all the way to New York in order to film a video because you're not around to film my videos anymore. Camera Mike, he doesn't work at the school anymore, and he's moved on to better and bigger things and has left me behind. So I'm having to use other camera people now. But I miss you, brother, and let's get together and go fishing and shooting. All right, let's move on.
All right, C. Michael 40 says, I got far enough on my NC to give up. Sure wish I had seen your video before paying a mechanic.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I bought a brand new NC at one point, but I don't own one anymore. But, you know, I hope that maybe in the future you can give me a chance to help you fix your car. All right, buddy, sorry.
All right, Drew Wesley, 3741, watched your video on the car kill switch installation and says, what do you do with the wire you took off the starter?
Okay, I saw this comment when it came through on an email. I don't ever take a wire off of the starter. I add a wire to the starter, okay? So what I do is I add the white wire that went to the back of the alternator. I take it from there and I add it to the top post of the starter. So I never take a wire away from the starter. I add one to it. And then what I do, so the white wire from the back of the alternator went to the top post of the starter. That's battery voltage. And then I ran a wire from the kill switch all the way to the alternator, and that goes where the white wire went. So I hope that clears that up. If you screw this up, you'll know because the kill switch won't work. And so basically that white wire needs to also feed the fuse box. And the way we're doing it is we're powering the fuse box with the wire that goes to the top post of the starter, which goes to the battery. So that's how it's getting it. But anyhow, I hope that helps clear that up.
All right, Monty Gonzalez, 3457 says, you're a beast on the track.
Hey, man, don't get in my way because I'll run your ass over. If I ran you over, I'm sorry. You know, you get in the way, then I'm going to run you over. But thank you for the vote of confidence. And don't forget to stop by and say hi. I see people at the racetrack all the time that watch the videos, and I love hearing from you guys. So stop by and say hi, and maybe we get out there on the track together. I'm going to be at Thunder Hill at the end of August. This is 2023. August 26th, 27th, I think with NCRC, I'm going to be out there doing their races and driving around. Maybe I'll see you out there. All right.
All right, Jay says, I followed your procedure and primed a new oil pump before buttoning everything back together. This is on the pro-built engine Spec Miata oil pump install. I also filled the oil filter with oil. It sounds like I have a rod knock. The oil pressure gauge is stock and points straight up. Is there an easy way to tap in a pressure gauge to measure the actual pressure?
You know, I saw this comment come by. I believe what I did is I sent him a message to email me, and we talked on the phone. So for the rest of you, we figured it out. So this guy went through a lot of work on resealing up this engine, did a really good job on doing it. He described to me how he did it. He did a really great job, but he had the engine upside down. And I think what happened was that the lifters bled down, and when he first started up, it started kind of making a knocking sound. And he sent me a video of the knocking sound. The knocking sound kind of didn't really sound like a rod knock. He was afraid that he had spun a rod bearing. And so he was asking for if he could put a pressure tap in there to get the gauge. He did. I told him how to do it. He had 55 pounds when that thing started. That is a ton of oil pressure. There's nothing wrong with those bearings down below. It ended up being that the lifters came unprimed and that he was just going to drive it, and slowly it went away. But I'm glad I could help you fix that out. Fix that over the phone, buddy, and he sent me messages and videos on it, and we were able to get that hashed out. And so, but that was it. I told them to go ahead and send it on a comment because I wanted to share that with you in case you ran that same problem. So if you're going to spin the engine upside down while you're working on it, it sits like that for a few days, you could bleed off the lifters and it could make some ricky-ticky sounds before it starts sounding normal again. Thank you for that comment. We'll do one more.
All right. Kevin Douglas says, you deliver great content. I definitely learned something today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Well, that's because of my daughter talked me into making this channel. Do we have one more that's an automotive question?
Yeah, Billy Blaze says, I'm about to do this job tomorrow. He was watching your clutch master and slave cylinder replacement video. I'm praying real hard that I don't have to do a clutch job, but if that ends up being the case, I'm going with an aftermarket clutch and lightweight flywheel and replacing all the seals because who wants to do work twice? I literally just got through doing the first timing belt service on my 99, charging the AC and replacing the tires, fuel pump assembly and fuel filter, as well as a charcoal canister and some sensors. The car only has 62,000 miles on it, but when you let a car sit a lot, stuff goes to crap. On top of that, I'm about to paint the whole car since a guy backed over my hood, and I figured I have to paint the hood, I'm just going to paint the whole thing.
You know, that's a lot of stuff, but I want to say this to all of you. If you're watching this, it's because you have a Miata. You have one of the easiest platforms to work on. All right, these cars are super simple. I think that's why they've gotten such a huge following in the last 5 or 6 years, because they're easy to work on. They're very basic. You don't have to have a lot of special tools. You don't have to have a lot of knowledge on how to work on them. Like I said, I've got high school kids working on them all the time. They don't even know how to spell car, but they're working on it. So you picked a good one. Hey, you know what? It sounds like you're having a lot of fun and you're learning a lot about working on your own car. And that's all a good thing. All right. That's a great thing. And that you show a lot of pride in doing that. Sorry somebody backed over your car. Kid once in a big, huge four-wheel drive backed over my Miata. Luckily, his dad owned a body shop and they fixed it. But I'm glad it helped out. Hey, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for subscribing to my channel and making it a very fast-growing channel for Spec Miatas on YouTube. And I hope that I get to see you at the racetrack soon. Bye now.